make the seats creak.
Mike was the youth pastor at College Acres Baptist Church. Hearing Mike preach and how he worked with the youth, very impressed with that young man.
I was 29 years old. I looked about 15, and we needed people to take us seriously, so we tried to dress older to try and look like we were adults that knew what we were doing.
Mike was my youth pastor. I met him when I was 15. The first time I heard about Port City was on a plane to Toronto, Canada. I was in college, and I was a college volunteer with the youth ministry. And on the plane to Toronto for that mission trip, I had the folder with all the information in it. And I remember on the plane, Mike sat beside me, and we were going over the papers in the folder. And then at some point, he turned to me and said, "I have something to tell you. We're starting a church."
I'm not sure if this is like pulpit furniture or what, but these seats will hopefully all be filled with people who are convinced that they will be coming to the first service of Port City Community Church.
I just kind of thought about it. I think the first time I wrote it in my journal, the first time Julie and I had a conversation about it, was probably in 1995 or 96. I wrote it in my journal for the first time in 96. It was just this vague, I kind of think perhaps maybe God might be calling me to start a church.
I remember when I told Mike I didn't know for sure it was going to be here, and a group of friends of ours went to Columbia, South Carolina, to a Beth Moore conference, and whatever she spoke about that day was like the Holy Spirit spoke to me right then. This is it. And so I called Mike from the lobby of this church. Yep, this is it. It's the church, and it's planting a church. I don't know the timeline, but I know it's in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Give them a place where they can come and experience God on their own time, their own way.
We started the church in 99 in a home. It was September in a home. And then Roland Grice was available, which is the middle school here in town. And it had 720 seats. So it's like, we'll rent that place. Started our first service mainly just to do a run through. It was canceled because of a hurricane. I called the news. We were all gathered with all of our family because they were here just kind of wishing us well in the first service. And the hurricane was coming in. And rather than just like calling the 20 people who were going to be there, I just decided let's call the news, because at the time they would run like a ticker across the bottom of the screen. And so I remember we were all sitting on the TV, and it said, Port City Community Church cancels its services. We're like, yay! It's the first time we'd ever seen the church name like anywhere in public.
I can still remember, just that first gathering. He had the sweater vest. We were like 29. It was like, what are we doing? And it's not what are we doing, it's what is God doing.
We were starting out so small that whatever needed to be done, we just did. And certainly as things grew, God put people in place with gifts and talents.
In a lot of ways, pretty amazed at what was happening in a middle school, because at that time it was really just a church that happened on Sunday and then it went away. You pulled into a parking lot of a middle school and it was a middle school. And then all of a sudden, it was converted into a church. You had a gymnasium that housed Treasure Island, a cafeteria that housed Grow Zone, and then an auditorium with these squeaky chairs that was kind of our main auditorium. And so it was just kind of a really beautiful time and season. There was almost an innocence to what we were doing, almost like we didn't know better, but yet there was this deep faithfulness that God was always going to show up.
I recall vividly the first Sunday we had 500 people to attend Port City Community Church. And at that point, I said, God, we're done. This is it. This is real. This is a number. School wouldn't hold us anymore. This is 500 people that are coming to this church. But little did I know what God had planned.